morning. I'm with Woody Wallace this morning, and we heard about the wonderful coordination between the different disciplines on the arrest of the escaped convict. I'd like for you to kind of tell the people about it.
Well, as you know, we had a man that was in the Houston County Jail up in Crockett that I'm not exactly sure all his charges, but I know a lot of them pertain to burglary. I think he'd been in prison, and I think he was due to go back. So what I understand was that somehow he escaped from Houston County, and he was on the run for 4 or 5 days. Well, one morning I received a phone call that a couple guys saw a man that looked suspicious, and they kind of figured that it might be the escaped convict. And so myself and one of the game wardens were dispatched to that location, and when we got there, we talked to 2 men that were working in the area north of Trinity down Mill Pond Road, and they said that they had saw a man come out of the woods, come up to them and approached them and asked them for some water. Said the guy looked pretty tired, pretty thirsty, and that he was just, you could tell that he'd been kind of through the bushes. His shirt was torn, and he looked pretty rough. Yeah. So they called us. From there, we took the call, and then we went out there and talked to them, and they had a picture that we were able to show them, or we had a picture we were able to show these guys. They identified him. They said, without a doubt, that is him. We'd put money on it. So at that point, I called the dispatch, and I asked them to send all the agencies that we had available to surround this area. It was probably 200 or 300 acres, very dense wood that we figured he was in. And the TDC dogs were brought out, and they were able to, over the course of running the dogs, they knew he was in there somewhere, but the vegetation was very thick. This guy was also, when he was in TDC, trained these tracking dogs at one time. So not that he was going to be able to outsmart them forever, but he was able to keep them moving and guessing of where he was. But once they would have caught him, found him, then they would have found him still. But this just kind of delayed it to him being a little smarter. But we knew he was in an area right behind the tracks. One of the dogs got on his trail really hot. So we just kept him contained in this block of property that was real dense. With all the agents, we had Trinity PD, the Trinity Fire Department. We had the game wards were there. We had DPS troopers. The Rangers were there. You know, when he hit Trinity County, I decided at that point we were going to catch him. We knew he was in those woods, and once you know someone is where they are, and no matter how big it is, you just stay on them until you get them. You keep them trapped until you narrow it down. Right. And we were able to get out that night. The dogs run hard, but it was hot that day. The dogs were getting thirsty and tired. The horses were getting thirsty and tired. Everybody was getting thirsty and tired. So they kept on his trail all day long, so we knew we were wearing him down. And then when nighttime fell upon us, you know, the nighttime cooling process started, which allowed us to go in with heat detecting vision. So from there, we brought in the FLIR. It's called a FLIR, and what that does is a thermal imagery where it picks up heat signatures. And this heat signature was detected in the middle of this property, and so at that point we knew he was in there. It was just a matter of sneaking up on him without him being detected. We deployed in a couple guys, a DPS, a Ranger went in. They put on night vision gear. They were directed through the woods until where they found him, and he was taken into custody at that point with absolutely zero problems. He cooperated at the time that he was caught. He was tired. I asked him, you know, if he had eaten in 5 days. He said no, he had not. He was able to find water. Now, you can always find water, but the quality of it is certainly something. I have not followed up to seeing if he had any problems since he drank that water, but he was drinking water out of cattle troughs, horse troughs, and ponds. So I know somewhere in there he probably picked up some bacteria that's going to give him some problems. But he was eat up with bugs, bad. I mean, he had bugs that bites all over him, mosquitoes, ants, chiggers, gnats, everything was eating on him. So he was probably not he didn't want to go back to jail, but I think at this point in time he was relieved that he was caught. I asked if he'd ever do it again. He said not in this lifetime, whatever that meant. But he is back in custody and awaiting, I guess, now he's got new charges on him for escape, which is a felony.
Well, it sounds like you followed through with it. You did. We're proud of y'all and all the work that y'all did on it, because this was not an easy task, but you didn't let it get out of hand, and that's what's important about this. And I noticed that the schools cooperated with the lockdown, lockout, that they already knew what to do, and
yes.
So this is real important that the county coordinates together like this, and everybody works together, and that I want Trinity County to know that y'all are a one. Even though there's several agencies, y'all operate as one and coordinate with each other, and this is exciting to us, and I appreciate that.
And what important was, when people tuned into the Facebook, we were able to keep people informed where we thought he was at the time. If anything changed, we certainly went live on Facebook and showed people, hey, this is what we're doing, where we're at. And I think that brought a lot of ease to a lot of people. That not at any time did we consider this particular guy a physical threat, but there's always that but. When someone escapes from jail or prison, they're desperate. And when people get thirsty, they get dehydrated, they get delirious, they get paranoid. So a whole host of things can happen. So someone that's not usually a violent person, if they're desperate enough, they can turn to violence. So we always want to treat somebody that escapes as dangerous.
That's right.
And if they're armed, we certainly want to let everybody know they're armed. And if they're not armed, we certainly want to pretend like, until we find out that they're not, that they could be armed, because you never know what house they got into or deer camp and found weapons. So we're never going to go into a situation like that where we don't believe that they're armed and dangerous. But we did just put out there, we didn't think he was armed unless he found a gun. He didn't find one that we know of. We didn't find one with him. But the moral of the story is, if you come to Trinity County, we're not just going to give up. You run, we're going to chase you.
That's right.
And we're going to chase you until our tires fall off or your tires fall off. And we got better equipment than everybody else out there that's running. So we're going to make sure.
I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you so much.